on a corner where the big boys play.
What's going on, everybody? I hope everyone's having a fantastic evening, afternoon. No matter where you are in the world, I'm Hassan Piker, and this is HasanAbi broadcast coming to you live from not so sunny California, Los Angeles, folks. We're live and alive, and I hope all the boys, girls, and MBs are having a fantastic one. Coming to you live from, what is this? TikTok kept taking down the HasanAbi doctrine. Yeah, everything is fucking censored. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and MBs, we're live and alive, and I hope all the boys, girls, and MBs are having a fantastic one, because today's a beautiful day. Today's a wonderful day. Today is the 5th day of the year, as a matter of fact. Only the 5th day of the year, even though it feels like it's going to be a long one. This is Lyndon Johnson Told the Nation Eurobeat remix by Vika's Music. Only 360 more days like this to go, ladies and gentlemen. Only 360 more to go. It's January 5th, 2026. I hope everyone's having a fantastic one, regardless of all of the circumstances. We are live, we're alive, and there's a lot to cover. There's a lot to get into, and I'm going to get into it real quick. But before I do that, of course, beware, a lot of people trying to bait you today. Don't get baited. Wait, why? Someone said, I'm an Asmongold viewer, but I'm trying to give you a good fair shake today. What good are beliefs if you don't put them to the fire? Cheers, everyone. Hell yeah. Respect. Don't know why people are, why chatters are already in a panic state here, but talking about how chatters are in a panic state, talking about how like there's going to be a lot of baiters in here today. That's like so much. That's every other day. Anyway, yeah, personal news wise, let's get right into it. This is part of the broadcast where I tell you about my personal news in the time period where I press the stop streaming button and press the start streaming button. So help me God, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, because they're your community, Lamau, that's why they're agitated. I know, but I took a day off, and a lot of people don't realize that it's usually the people that are in this community that did not get my attention for the last 24 hours. So they're actually the ones that will be desperate debate rather than random onlookers, because that's not even remotely different than how it is in any other day, in any other circumstance. A lot of your ops are bots, cannot comprehend the American Uniparty clips of all yours. All they hear is Kamala, same as Trump all day. Oh yeah. No, the liberals are really funny because they're, anyway, whatever. Let's just, God, there's so much to talk about. I don't give a shit. I'm not gonna get into all this stuff initially. Personal news wise, yesterday I spent some time with my family, and I shot the episode of Fear and that's the reason why I did not stream yesterday. So apologies. I know when I take the day off, things go crazy. I know when I take the day off, people lose their minds a little bit, especially when I come back. Who was the guest? The guest was Jason the Ween. Jason the Wee. But that's neither here nor there. It's good. It's good. I'm glad that I took the day off, spent some time with the family. It helped me open up my mind a little bit, and I've been reading that book about Mao from Philip Short, and it's been, or I think it's Philip Short, but it's been pretty good. I spent some time reading a little bit on my own, but a lot has taken place obviously since then. I was reading the bitty comments on a video of you reacting to a chatter who asked if you'd be China and kidnap Trump and install the socialist government. I saw this banger. Jeff Lowkirk fucked up your hair. I don't think so. I think my hair is great. But I did not watch Heated Rivalry. I've been rewatching Jujutsu Kaisen. And that's it. And I haven't really been watching a lot of stuff anyway. Normally on my day off, I watch a lot of stuff. This time, I didn't watch a lot of stuff. And the reason why is because I am, like I said, I'm reading a book. And that's what it is. That's what I've been doing. I've been reading books. I recommend it. I recommend it to all. But yeah, this morning, woke up early, weightlifted, you know, and improved my life a little bit. So highly recommend you guys do that as well. That made me feel pretty good. How's your brutal injury going? It's a little bit annoying. I think last time when I actually messed up my ankle, last time when I rolled my ankle, by this point, because it's been like 3 weeks plus now, it was definitely a little bit better. Like I can walk on it, but it still hurts. It's still like tender to touch. It's still swollen. And when you say age will do that to you, yeah, except, you know, last time this happened was last year. It's not like I'm, you know, it's not like I've my last ankle sprain was, 10 years ago or something. You got to train your mobility and agility, to be honest. I know, chatter. Thank you. But I know that I need to get stronger. I need to get strength around my ankles, my calves, mobility, all that stuff. I know. I'm aware. Knees over toes type shit. I'm totally aware. I'm not oblivious to this stuff. In any case, it's all good. I'm still pumping. It's not like I'm not, you know, I'm still pumping. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about, so I'm just going to get right into it. We got the Maduro kidnapping, hogs flip back to pro-war positions. Once again, Venezuela action is unpopular in spite of propaganda. Waltz to retire after term ends. It's Monday News Day. We got so much to talk about, obviously. You know, ankle braces are also great. Wore them all through my basketball career. Never had a bad ankle injury, and I played D3. Yeah, I mean, I think you just always have to wear it once you get to a certain point. You know what I mean? But can you predict that Venezuela won't invade the U.S.? Please, asking for a friend. Okay. You got Matt Petty in the trenches. What is this? Cayuga's top gal. I had to leave Venezuela because Maduro shot my parents at a protest. Look at this Israeli Nazi. Sad because she lost her privilege. Kaya, shut up. Bro, this guy is literally a Mexican Nazi. Like, I'm sorry. And I don't mean like Nick Fuentes style Mexican American Nazi. Like, this guy is straight up an obese Mexican Nazi. There is nothing I respect less. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, I think at least Asmongold is white. You know what I mean? So like his positions are at least, I mean, well, albeit still abhorrent, morally repugnant, kind of makes sense. Like, there is nothing I respect less than someone who is a white supremacist who is Mexican in Mexico. Okay? Like, America will roll over your country in the same way that it did Venezuela, and you will get ass fucked with a bayonet, and you will sit there and you'll go, hold on, guys, you don't understand. I'm actually a white nationalist, as you get raped by a bayonet. Okay? It's just not, like, you're so irrelevant in this conversation. I'm sorry. You're a worthless person. Like, and it's also hilarious that they're doing like standpoint epistemology here as well. The Groypers are going fucking full woke is right. Like, really. It's just, you're a worthless, servile little worm that nobody really respects. Nobody in your movement actually respects you. You're not even like worthwhile as a token, honestly, to spend. You are a Mexican in Mexico that is LARPing for white nationalist, Christian fascist, neo-Nazi movements. You will never be remembered. You will be forgotten. You are nothing. And I think you know that you are nothing. And that's why you have to like hold on. At least when dumb fuck American hogs are like, oh, I love I love our pedophilic pro-Israel elites that are doing everything in their power to send people overseas to go blow up shit, kill people so that like Exxon's bottom line looks a little bit better on a chart, you know, so that we can fight against an imagined enemy. But at least like those guys are straight up on a team, right? Like they're playing team sports, right? You're not even in the same league. Like you're not even watching the NBA and saying you're a Boston Celtics fan. You literally are in an entirely separate league. Okay? You're in the Mexican league. So for me, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But of course, it's Twitter, and you know, it is what it is. What ultimately is his purpose? Like, no comprendo. His purpose is to make $35 a month. You know, $35 fucking dollars a month off of getting like a viral clip, which, you know, you gotta make it how you can, right? Like, I'm not gonna hate on that. Who cares about that shit? But get the bag, King. But genuinely, the worst possible position to be in overall, right? At least like the hyper reactionary diaspora Venezuelans that seemingly a lot of people are frustrated by in Spain and everywhere else, where they're you know, celebrating Venezuela being bombed and stuff. Like, at least they're still Venezuelan. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, in their minds, they think like, oh, if Machado gets in, then my dad can go back to the country and we can, you know, go back to the media franchise that we owned or something. You know what I mean? We can have our grocery store chain again in operation, and we can like farm as much revenue as possible off the backs of poor Venezuelans. But for you, like, you are so far removed from this equation. Like, you're not even remotely close to the impact. As a matter of fact, the justification for this kind of militancy against Venezuela, the overriding of sovereignty of Venezuela, ironically enough, will inevitably come your way as well. And let me be very clear. If you think that a Tomahawk missile is going to make a distinction between your house because you're a white supremacist Twitter poster and any other house, you are delusional. Okay? It will not. A Tomahawk missile will wipe you off the fucking face of this planet, regardless of your consistent advocacy for American imperialism and white supremacy in general. It's all good, though. You know, it's not like our words have any kind of impact here. But maybe one day you will feel the impact of American imperialism, you know, in the form of a Tomahawk missile coming in your direction. But hopefully you'll be able to fire off a couple extra tweets for another meager $26.67 in revenue that will go back to your family, who probably disowned you already a long time ago because they know that you are an obese Mexican white supremacist living in Mexico. Anyway, next topic. Where was I? Sorry to pop off so hard so early. Maduro kidnapping, we'll talk about all of that, obviously. Let me blast off real quick, and then we'll get started. Did you see Walls dropped out? Yes, I did. Maduro kidnapping, Hawks flip back to pro-war positions once again. Venezuela action is unpopular in spite of propaganda. JD Vance home broken into. Walls to retire after term ends. Monday, Newsday, twitch.tv/HasanAbi. Oh, wait, he's not obese, Lamau. That's the other Nazi. This one is very skinny and very brown. Oh, my mistake. There's two Mexican neo-Nazis on Twitter, and they both have like anime avatars and anime profiles. My mistake. This one is the frail one. shit. I mistook the prominent neo-Nazis on Twitter for one another. Yeah. You always got to have one like fat henchman and one skinny henchman, you know? So this one's the frail one. What is this? You are what? You are defending a white supremacist diasporoid? What is this? Please move on. This is decidedly a non-argument. Why do leftists feel the need to do this every time? I don't even know what you guys are fighting over, but it doesn't really matter. So here's the thing, okay? A lot of people keep going back and forth on the timeline doing standpoint epistemology over, the bodies and spaces of Venezuelans, right? They're talking about how like ruthless and cruel of a tyrant Maduro was. They're talking about how bad Maduro was in general, how he may or may not have stolen the last election, according to at least some of the people that were election watchers and things like that. And none of that is actually relevant because that's not the reason why America engaged in this action. And none of that's also relevant because we're talking about state action, right? State versus state illegal action. These are actions that took place that are completely and utterly illegal under international law. Not that international law has ever really mattered. Let's be real. International law only mattered as far as you could just justify American violations of international law by pointing to the initial suspected violation of international law, right? Like we get to go and dominate whoever the fuck we want to. We get to do whatever the fuck we want because we suspect the other side of violating international law. And in some instances, it does, right? Because in some instances, there are violations of international law. In some instances, you are actually going after like a despot, right? But the real reason is you're not actually going after a despot for some, international police perspective, right? If there was a concept of international police, I believe they would probably go after America first, right? Because we are the ones who violate all the international laws because we are the ones who wrote it and we are the ones who actually utilize it in this incredibly cynical fashion. So, I mean, we'd be doing it to Israel. We would be doing it to the United States of America if there was like any sort of fucking ICC system that actually worked. Obviously, there isn't one. So, all of that stuff is completely ridiculous, right? All of that stuff is completely ridiculous. All that stuff is completely silly. This like demand for consistency, I find very strange, especially at a time when like Donald Trump seemingly is not even remotely interested or remotely invested in upholding the standard of like liberalizing the world or fighting for liberal democracy or fighting for democracy in general. It's not. And Donald Trump is not even making this argument at all, which in some respects, I guess I appreciate, makes my job a little bit easier. However, unfortunately, if we're being totally real here, liberals are still seemingly making this argument, right? Liberals are still seemingly making the argument that while Donald Trump is saying that he wants to do this for resource extraction, saying that this is illegal, saying that he has no plan or whatever for like what comes next, they still try to make it seem as though there is a plan out there. Or my favorite was what Chris Murphy did, which was once again complaining about Donald Trump's militancy, not on the virtues of anti-imperialism, anti-war, but instead complaining about Donald Trump's military action because it wasn't, it didn't go hard enough. Like we didn't actually implement a coup, like a successful coup, and we just like kind of left it hanging. I find that very funny. It's obviously Chris Murphy is a classic. This is a classic meme reborn. I know. I posted this on my Instagram as well. But yeah, for those of you who were living under a rock until recently, a couple nights ago, the American government finally initiated a bombing campaign on Caracas, taking out anti-air defense systems, and also taking out the entire electricity grid of Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, as they went in with a bunch of helicopters. I believe it's like 150 aircraft total, and kidnapped the leader of Venezuela, right? A sovereign nation state. We kidnapped him and his wife in the dead of the night while he was in his pajamas before he was able to escape into his steel vault, apparently. And in the process, apparently, according to numerous sources at this point, upwards of 80 people died. There were a bunch of Cuban military as well that was in Maduro's personal security detail that died. I think it was like 32 there, and almost 40 Venezuelan soldiers died as well. And then the rest were civilians. Not that it matters, obviously, in the minds and hearts of the average American. It's just regular American cruelty. It's just a light day, right? The claims that the administration was making was that the Maduro government was actually engaging in this high-profile cocaine trafficking scheme alongside the FARC, the Marxist rebel groups, the Marxist militancy in Colombia. Now, what's really interesting about that is, if you know anything about Latin American history, especially as it pertains to American involvement in Latin American history, you know that it's actually the exact opposite, right? It's exactly the opposite of this, where it is the CIA that is facilitating narco trafficking that takes place in Latin America, and they do it with regular frequency. They do it with tremendous efficiency. They do it to control not only the flows of drugs, but also to fund for their black ops and fundraise for their black ops, and also keep Latin American countries at bay with armed conflict. And it's rarely the socialist or the Marxist groups that are playing a role in this, even though they can in certain instances. Of course, yes, the CIA and the Contras being one of the most notable, one of the most famous examples, right? And you watch too many TV shows. I watch too many TV shows. That's interesting. I didn't realize that reading books was actually a substitute for TV shows. And instead, people who watch Jack Ryan to develop an understanding of why America must intervene in other countries' businesses will come in here with, Marvel movie style understandings of the world and accuse me of, watching too many TV shows. All right. So in any case, here we're going to keep blasting off. We're going to keep blasting off. Happy New Year for every single person that thinks that this is actually going to be good for them in any way, shape, or form. If you're an American, if you're not American and you're celebrating these actions, I have no respect for you. If you're an American and you're celebrating these actions, I have no respect for you either. But at least you have, you have reason to feel like this is an action that was done for you. You're still stupid, but at least you're not as stupid as I don't know, some fucking European moron who's running around being like, no, you don't understand. This is actually something that needed to happen. I'm so glad that it took place. If you're an American, you're still brainwashed, but at least you're getting a fucking healthy flow of propaganda that makes you feel like anytime America actually engages in this sort of militancy, it somehow improves your material conditions when it very clearly doesn't. And maybe perhaps you are either too old to give a shit or too young to remember what the Iraq War was sold to Americans as and what it actually ended up turning into. And that's usually the issue with a lot of people's perspective on any kind of American militancy. It's always the same. Resource extraction is usually one of the primary goals here, and also ideological investment in fascism, or the Monroe Doctrine, or now they're calling it the Don Roe Doctrine. They want to ensure that their part of the hemisphere is completely kept under control and completely dominated and servile to American interests. Usually the people that are in the country end up suffering the most. But oftentimes they sell this concept as a good thing. In the past, they used to sell it as a great liberalization initiative, a great democratization initiative, whether it was a right-winger doing it or whether it was a liberal doing it, right? And yet Now, Donald Trump doesn't even do that. He doesn't even engage in that. He just straight up says it like it is. We're going to control Venezuela. And if they don't fucking play ball, we will keep pummeling. We will keep blowing your shit up. And for people who think that gas is going to get cheaper as a consequence of this, you genuinely have the brain of a worm. I hate to say this to you, but gas is not going to get cheaper as a consequence of this. Okay. Not only will it take many, many years to fully start the refinement process, even if we procure the 300 million barrels of oil in the world's largest natural reserve, the very fact that it's heavy crude and the very fact that there needs to be a tremendous amount of investment put in place to even build up this process, and the very fact that the current Venezuelan government is basically still the Maduro government without Maduro, makes things a lot more complicated, even though Maduro himself seemingly wanted to also play ball with American investment. So, it's just not going to make the oil cheaper for you. In any case, it will probably it will be good. It will be beneficial in the long run for America's leverage against Canada, America's leverage against China. It'll be good for the American State Department and the American interest. It'll be good for American capital. It will not be good for you, just as though the Iraq War was not good for you. The only thing that the Iraq War brought to you is maybe your cousin having his foot blown off by an IED and a lifetime of medical debt and crippling PTSD. And maybe for you personally, I guess if you did go out there, you got your high school sweetheart that you married early on get fucked by the neighbor, and then you came back to a broken home, and now you have to take care of someone else's child. Of course, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, you look back at the ashes of Baghdad and you think to yourself, what was this for? And if the answer is, at least we got to spread democracy in Iraq, well, you're a fucking idiot, and it's probably better that you keep coping this way, right? But ultimately, your government hates you, and they're not exactly hiding that reality any longer, and yet you still hope that the government actually is doing this for you, because otherwise you would realize that the government is not doing this for you at all. They're doing it for someone else. They're doing it for someone else to make money, as a matter of fact. Okay. So, having said all of that, let's get into it. So, yes, Maduro was kidnapped in the dead of the night. And a lot of people who were voting for Donald Trump because they thought he was the great peace bringer are now actually totally on board with Donald Trump not being the great peace bringer. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump in his first term so far, in the first, year of his administration, which, remember, it hasn't ended yet because it started on January 20th and there's 15 more days for his first year to end, has bombed 7 different countries. Okay? This is a new record. A new record. Direct bombing campaigns in 7 different countries. Fantastic. We're not even fully through the first year. And hopefully, we hopefully we don't get to see how much worse it can get, but who knows? I don't think things are looking too good. Okay. 8 wars resolved, 7 countries bombed. I have a lot of thoughts on this. Obviously, I have a lot of opinions on this. And before we get to like all the dumb fucks that are obviously flip-flopping on their positions, as we expected they would, because they cannot be consistent, because they've never actually cared about a single goddamn thing beyond clicks or beyond their own personal careers. We'll get into the details. Is there, the Macy's, do you have a playlist here? And I'll get started on it. Everyone took the day off. Full simmer on this. Oh, thank you, Gizmo. But here it is. And also, the liberals have expectedly been unimaginably disappointing in their coverage over this. No one is calling it what it is. No one is calling it a kidnapping. There are No one is considering this to be unjustifiable, illegal, totally ridiculous, and everyone is trying to basically do propaganda in their own way. For the Republicans, they now admit pretty much that this is bullshit, right? Republicans pretty much recognize that this is done for oil, right? This is done for oil, and they like it. And it turns out that it turns out that this is a good thing. It's a good thing to go to war with oil, even though Donald Trump personally railed against the Iraq War. As a matter of fact, it turns out this time is different. It's going to be different. Why is it going to be different? Well, there's no reason to assume that it's going to actually be different, but he just keeps saying it's going to be different, right? So Republicans have taken on that position. It's awesome. We're going to get free oil because they're fucking stupid. They have incredibly low IQs. They have the brain of worms, right? So obviously, whatever the Trump administration is saying, they jump into, right? BS, I've heard plenty of liberals call it a kidnapping. Now, if you're talking about members of Congress, then I agree with you. Yes, I'm not talking about regular liberals, chatter. When I talk about libs, I'm not talking about the average person. The average person, I think, especially a lifelong Democratic Party voter, is far more radical than the actual Democratic Party politician at this point. So, no, when I say liberals, I'm talking about the liberal politicians. Although some of them have collectively railed against the action on its illegality, they've actually talked about how this is a misdirection. Ultimately, they still run defense for the justifiable nature of this action by saying Maduro's a brutal, ruthless tyrant. He wasn't democratically elected, all this shit. Now, some of you may think, well, this is actually, ass covering, right? It has no basis in the action that took place here. So anytime you bring that shit up, regardless of whether you believe it or not, you're being a fucking idiot, because the average person, the apolitical normie that hears you say Maduro was a ruthless and brutal tyrant, but it's kind of ridiculous that we illegally extracted him. No one gives a fuck about the process. Okay. When you say someone is a ruthless and brutal tyrant, who cares if you violated the law to actually take him out? Okay. So you're just destroying your own argument that comes afterwards. And it leads me to believe that it's because you don't actually hate that Trump did this at all. You actually like that Trump did this. You just can't say it because you have to be politically polarized against Donald Trump, even though, you're kind of in agreement here, and you just simply can't say it. So you just say this thing instead. You're like, oh, this is illegal and fucked up. And perhaps one of the greatest examples of this is Chuck Schumer and the way he's carried himself throughout this entire process, where on the one hand, he keeps saying, Trump said no regime change, but he's doing regime change. But then on the other hand, whenever he's asked directly whether or not he will take any hard actions against the Trump administration, by using any kind of power that Congress has, his answer always is, nah, not really. Not really, no. Okay, so you're not against it then. Thank you, Chuck Schumer. We get it. The social media astroturfing has been insane. In addition to the usual Twitter nonsense, even small Reddit India memes communities have been invaded with pro-war shit. Have you noticed this uptick? That's my entire life. So it's not in any way, shape, or form different for me. I take this position all the time. Whenever America engages in a war crime, I say it's going to be bad. This is a war crime. This is illegal. And it's going to have tremendous repercussions down the line that are negative. And it's also not being done for any sort of like American prosperity, but instead it's being done for American capital. And then people yell at me and they say, I'm a fucking loser. I'm gay. I'm socialist. I'm commie. I'm an America hater. I want non-whites to come and dominate this country, or any number of different idiotic things. Oftentimes, this used to be just the right-wingers that used to say it. Unfortunately, now liberals kind of say similar things as well. Liberal version of this is basically, if you don't like it, you should leave. They don't say white power in the same way that like Republicans do, but liberals will often also do a similar line of argumentation where they go, shut the fuck up. Why can't you let America have a W? We just want to feel like we got a W here. And then a couple of years later, they realize I was right, but that resentment carries over and they move on to the next thing, because nobody wants to feel like they were wrong. And everyone wants to, nobody remembers what you said. They just remember how you made them feel. And I guess for a lot of liberals, I make them feel bad when I say things that they end up agreeing with later down the line. Whether it takes a year or 5, it doesn't matter. Especially in this increasingly this increasingly kinetic media environment where the internet has exploded in popularity and mass usage, and the media cycles are very fast. It takes a lot shorter of a timeline for people to come to terms with with the impact of our actions. If it took like people 10 years to understand that the Iraq War was bullshit, it took people 2 years to understand that Israel was doing a genocide, in spite of the unimaginable amounts of propaganda coming from Israel and coming from American mainstream media. And regardless of that, people still came to the right conclusion there. People still saw the reality there. So here's where we're at.
You're looking live again. ABC News live coverage here of the arraignment on these charges, narco-terrorism charges in federal court, heavy security presence both inside and outside the court, as you can see. Because this is federal court, there are no cameras in the courtroom, but Aaron Katursky is inside, our chief investigative correspondent, with Nicolas Maduro standing. Aaron now reports that Judge Hellerstein read him the standard rights. I did not know of these rights. Your Honor is informing me of them now, Maduro said through an interpreter. How do you plead to the indictment, Hellerstein asked. That's the judge, of course. And here's Maduro's response. Quote, I am innocent. I am not guilty. I am a decent man. I am still president of my country. Nicolas Maduro responding again. That is the headline of the moment here, given our live coverage, that Nicolas Maduro has responded in court to these charges just moments ago.
In the Western Hemisphere, Cuba will be next, potentially Mexico, potentially Colombia, as Donald Trump has mentioned. In Europe, he's talking about overtaking Greenland. European leadership will say nothing about it because they are servile dogs, as we have seen, especially with this incident that took place. And before people compare this to Panama, America already had a military base in Panama, and Noriega was already a CIA asset, and Noriega was not technically in power at the same time. So our previously installed military coup was taken out by the United States of America, whereas in Venezuela, whether Maduro's popularity was waning or not is utterly irrelevant in this process. It is still a sovereign nation that won its sovereignty and continued to fight for its sovereignty in spite of the incredible amounts of sanctions, right? So there is no Panama comparison that you can make in this process, with the exception of the fact that they were done at the same day, January 3rd, only, 36 years apart? So that's what's going on here. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous, totally unjustifiable. It's just straightforward. I wouldn't even say it's like imperialism, because we've actually devolved away from imperialism. Imperialism can be more complex than this. This is just ultimately colonialism. Okay, this is the OG shit. This is like when, the British Empire would just go in with ships, with boats, and dominate the native population and enslave them, right? It's kind of like that. It's a very clear-cut smash and grab. It's no longer as it doesn't even go through the same economic functions with the IMF and the World Bank, or it doesn't even engage in the legalese to justify this sort of action. It's just straight up saying might makes right. It's out in the open. We are the United States of America. We got hard dicks, and there's nothing you can do about it. And unfortunately, saying the quiet part out loud is not actually making a lot of our liberal politicians really reconsider their endless loyalty to American empire. It's actually, they haven't really changed their narrative. They're making it seem like there is a process here that needed to be followed, and they're not following it. And for the Republicans, they actually love the dumbified version of this, where they're like, hell yeah, baby. My dick is hard right now. It's the American cock, and everybody gets to see it, and it's awesome. And yeah, this is, I don't know if this is like a hog that says this, or if it's a liberal that says this. There's a lot of this stuff. It's like, oh, well, it's a standpoint theory that we're doing. Venezuelans are doing a bodies and spaces. they're actually happy with the fall of the regime. Not that it fucking matters, because there were plenty of Iraqi people that were happy with the fall of Saddam. And whenever someone actually follows up and tries to say, would you depose of Netanyahu? I ask them this question. Did Maduro do a genocide in broad daylight with American supervision, with American guns, with American weapons, or did he do a genocide at all? If the answer is no, then obviously these are different things, right? The question is, would you actually agree to do this to Adolf Hitler? And the answer would be yes. Okay. Would you do this to Maduro? The answer is fucking no. Because obviously Maduro and Benjamin Netanyahu are nowhere near on the same fucking playing field as far as brutality, ruthlessness, as far as the number of people that were killed. Okay. So once again, even Milosevic is less evil than Netanyahu, and he deserved it. Great. Except Milosevic, just like Netanyahu, also had the intent and the actions to commit a genocide. Notice how the two people that you've brought up that I actually agree with actually conducted a genocide, whereas this person didn't. Just because someone is a very bad person doesn't mean that this is how you can operate, okay? As a matter of fact, on that same playing field, the reality of the matter is American presidents have been far worse. And the only thing that's actually holding back the rest of the world from doing this to us is the fact that we have 800 plus known military bases and possibly 2,000 plus military bases in general all around the world. So that's the only reason. If we're like, so don't look for any sort of consistency, okay? Don't look for any sort of the consistency. Don't look for any sort of like moral, even moral playing field here. It's incredibly stupid, and you're being ridiculous when you try to maintain a consistent position as you are defending America's ridiculous illegal action, right? I don't really understand what causes people to try and entertain this notion. We already know that it's inconsistent. We already know what your position is. Your position is if America does it, then it's good. If anybody else does anything even remotely similar, then it's bad, right? That's it. That's your position, and we know that that's your position. So I don't know why the fuck you try to make it seem like it's anything but that. I don't understand it at all. Why is it? People can be glad Maduro's gone and hate how it happened. It's like you're not listening. I don't listen to anybody that tries to do this ridiculous thing, this ridiculous like bodies and spaces bullshit. I don't do this. I don't care. And as I've explained to you over and over again, the Iraqis celebrated the fall of Saddam as well. And then they realized perhaps this wasn't the best thing that could have happened to Iraq. Okay? Ask Iraqis who actually, with the exception of Kurds that at least have their own autonomous region now, okay? Ask the Iraqis how they feel about Iraq now, and they will tell you something entirely different. Not that it matters, because you're not listening to what I'm saying, okay? But that's it. Yeah, we have seen a million versions of this over and over and over again. It's completely ridiculous. We can include Ukrainians in this convo now, too, at this point. Yeah, Ukrainians, unironically, don't even understand what is about to happen to them, because I think this is a new multipolar world. And instead of having a multipolarity argument, instead of having a multipolar world between the two ideological planks of communism and capitalism, you now have regional superpowers that will basically do whatever the fuck they want in their own backyard. And the hope for non-nuclear countries that want to maintain their sovereignty is that their masters are nice, okay? Their masters at least give them high-speed rail or something, right? Because there is no more sovereignty in the world. There is no more nation state in the world unless you have a nuclear arms, unless you have a nuclear arsenal, and you consistently do ICBM deployments to showcase that you do have the capability of sending those nuclear arms all around the world. So let's be real. That is the reality. And if you are, if you're the head of a state that is not under the NATO nuclear umbrella, for example, if you are a non-aligned country, if you're a third world country, you're fucked unless you have nukes. So that's it. And hate to say this because everybody always says I'm a China glazer, and you know, I'm sympathetic to the notion of not posturing against China. Obviously, it's not a secret. I've talked about this quite a bit, and I do love me some Chinese development, but there's only two countries in this triple multipolarity conversation that we're having that are at least willing to fucking go out to bat and engage in straightforward militancy. Russia to a much lesser degree, America obviously being the top country that will actually go out and fuck you, right? But sorry, hold on one second. But China is not doing shit. Okay, is not. China is very clearly not doing shit. Russia to a much lesser degree is crazy. Yeah, much lesser degree in comparison to the United States of America. This doesn't mean that Russia is not behaving in a belligerent way. They are. Obviously, Ukraine is one example of this, and their actions in Africa is another example of this. But Russia to a much lesser degree in comparison to the USSR, for example, right? And certainly to a much lesser degree than the United States of America, right? You are going to find it incredibly difficult to convince Venezuelans that have been subjugated by the Chavez-Maduro regime for 2 decades that it's a bad thing that Maduro's out. The problem is the U.S. will not give Venezuelans the freedom of choice to what happens next, and they will pillage endlessly. Yeah, I don't really care about convincing Venezuelans that don't like Chavez or don't like Maduro. I just only care about explaining what is happening right now and what will happen next. Because at this stage, if you are a Venezuelan living in diaspora and you've heard the Donald Trump administration, after starving your economy in the first term and then offering you temporary protected status in the aftermath of that, only to use you as a talking point in the election cycle to basically say every single one of you is a rapist, drug dealer monster that must be deported to CCOT. If you think that guy actually gives a fuck about, Venezuelan safety and security or Venezuelan sovereignty, you're fucking delusional, okay? If you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, you have to make the calculation. Do I think that this guy who has run the country in a way that I despise, who has actually, arrested, apprehended my friends in student protests and things like that, is he actually better or worse than the American government? And the answer, unfortunately, for many of you that don't realize this, is that the American government will always be worse. There are a million examples to show you throughout the world. And I've talked about my own personal experience with this as well. I despise Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been in power for 25 plus years at this point. He is repressive. He's authoritarian. He's horrible. But a coup did take place in Turkey. And that coup was conducted by America's parallel state, the Fethullah Gulen Muslim cleric living in the Poconos, who had designed a completely parallel, what you would consider a deep state, a completely parallel state, and Erdogan's forces actually purged this parallel state. And I stand by that, regardless of the fact that I despise Erdogan and can't even fucking go back to the goddamn country because I'm not a fucking moron, okay? Erdogan, for all of his faults and failures, it was still better than an American CIA operative running the country. That's it. That's it. So before the diasporoids try to fucking hit me with this line of argumentation, I have personal stake in the matter in my situation. You know what I mean? I've lived through it.
Was saying, quote, I am innocent. I am not guilty. I'm a decent man. I am still president of my country.
Yeah, that's not what we're here to do at this moment. The judge then asked if Maduro has read the indictment. The counsel, about whom we just spoke, answered for him and says,
also, you're a rube if you think whether or not someone is a dictator as long as they align with America's interests. The U.S. does not care if countries are democracies as long as they help our oil companies. Anyone who thinks this and had nothing to do with Maduro being anyone who thinks this had anything to do with Maduro being a dictator is a sucker. Exactly. Like, I'm not gonna fucking rush to. I'm not in a big hurry to defend Maduro's form of governance, but partially because it's utterly irrelevant in this conversation, right? Like, it's just completely irrelevant in this conversation. And anyone that tries to make that the fixture of this conversation is, even if they're doing it because they genuinely fucking despise Maduro, is a bit of a rube. Okay, you're doing propaganda for the American government that the American government isn't even doing, and that's what's even funnier. At least with Iraq, they tried to present this as like liberalizing Iraq, presenting democracy to Iraq. They're not even doing that. So why are you doing it for them while they're also in the same breath saying that you're a fucking rapist, drug dealer, baby decapitator that needs to go to a fucking slave labor prison in El Salvador? It doesn't make any sense. Hasan, I love you, but you are delusional, thinking that the American government is worse than the Venezuelan. Yeah, I know. I know. This is my first time encountering this stuff. American intervention, this is new to me. I had not known that. You're right. Iraq, much better off now. Libya, much better off now. In so many circumstances, when America comes in and just fucks everything up, they oftentimes do a much better job, you're right, than whoever was in charge prior. Again, you can keep saying this over and over again, but the proof is in the pudding. And the reality of the matter is a lot more people are seemingly aware of this process, especially because it doesn't even help a single goddamn person other than, oil and gas giants in general. So you can keep making this argument, but, I'm kind of shocked about this backlash, which will change for the record. I think like initially before the actual military action in Venezuela, before the invasion, the bombing campaign, and the kidnapping of Maduro, obviously Americans were totally against it, right? Not that it fucking matters. We do whatever the fuck we want. The American government, I'm saying, does whatever the fuck it wants to do, and there's not really much you can do about it. And I guess the best you can do is hope that it doesn't come and knock down your door one day, right? Which it can happen. So, having said that, however, in spite of the propaganda, I think given the fact that so many Americans experience distaste from the global war on terror that was an abject failure, I think there is a lot of negativity around this campaign, with the exception of the fucking hogs and maybe some liberals who are LARPing as CIA operatives in my chat. Let's take a look.
Really surprised if this turns
It's
out
a real
to be
holy
positive
Toledo
for
moment for
Trump,
everybody.
or at least support for this operation. Why? U.S. military ousting Venezuela's president. Beforehand, look at this. 47% opposed, just 21% of Americans favored. The unsure was higher than the favor, 29% versus 21%.
Yeah.
Get this.
This is before the military operation took place, for the record. This is before the military operation took place. So let's take a look at the numbers
39%
afterwards.
of Republicans favored it. People are saying, oh, this could be a wag the dog moment. I have to ask, which dog are they wagging the tail of?
Sometimes these numbers change when an operation is seen as successful, but we just don't know. Yeah, we just don't know yet.
Yeah, right. We don't know. We're trying our best to make this look good, though. Let's be real. Because that is precisely what they're doing. That is precisely what they're doing. And this is how uniparty consensus is formed, right? If the Republican Party is the abusive, violent, militant party in this equation, the Democratic Party can be seen as like the enabling factor, right? The normalizing factor. The Democrats themselves don't actually go out to bat, with the exception of like brain-broken ogres like John Fetterman. But many of the Democrats will turn around and say, oh, well, you didn't do it the right way, even though it's totally justifiable, even though we would have done a similar thing ourselves. But also at the same time, we would have just gotten like the proper clearance ahead of time. It's never usually about the action itself and the impact of said action. It's how you're engaging in the action. It's always a process conversation. It's always a process argument, a procedural disagreement that the Democrats have with the Republicans. And if you're just like a regular ass dude following this along, why would you not agree with Donald Trump at that point? You look at someone going, well, Maduro is a ruthless tyrant and a despot, and he's fucking awful, and all the Venezuelans are celebrating this action, but you shouldn't have kidnapped him the way you did. Who is that argument for? Right? If I'm a regular dude and I haven't really thought about this stuff at all, and I see this guy that looks kind of like, Latin American Saddam Hussein, getting what's coming to him, because everyone, including the fucking liberals, are saying this is, this guy's a fucking brutal despot, a tyrant, ruthless, all this shit. Okay. And one side is saying, yeah, he was a brutal tyrant and we're stealing his fucking oil. Sucks to suck, bitch. We're the United States of America. And the other side is saying, yeah, he was a ruthless tyrant, but it's actually really fucked up that we're stealing his oil. And it's also really fucked up that we actually, kidnapped him without following the proper process. You didn't ask us if we had a say in this. Yeah, obviously the side that's saying, yeah, get fucked, he was brutal, ruthless fucking tyrant, who gives a shit if we're following the law or not, is going to win in that conversation. It's just like, I always find myself asking, who is this for? Who is this argument for? Right? Like, oh yeah, this guy was a ruthless tyrant, but you didn't kidnap him the right way. You didn't abduct him the right way. It's like, what do you mean? What right way? If you're saying he's fucking Adolf Hitler, but Latin American, everyone's going to be on board with kidnapping Adolf Hitler. The fuck?
How interested have people been since this news broke Saturday morning?
Yeah, one of the reasons why I don't think this, wagging of the tail will actually work out is because folks' interest in this story has very much been going, adios amigos, goodbye. I mean, just take a look here. Take a look here. Google searches for Nicolas Maduro after peaking this weekend down 70%. Down 70% versus Saturday. There was a peak on Saturday, but John, then the interest went, see you later, goodbye. And more than that, we can look at history, right? We can look at history. Look at another time we went into a foreign country, right? Take a look here. Google searches for Maduro at the peak, 74% lower than when we went into Pakistan and got Osama bin Laden back in May of 2011. And that had a little bit of a boost for Barack Obama, the president back then, but it was very much of a fleeting boost. So the bottom line is, you look at these numbers.
Yeah, also, bin Laden did 9/11. What is the 9/11 comparison for fucking Maduro? Like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, there is you can talk about the legality of that operation or whatever, but what the fuck did Nicolas Maduro do to America or Americans, right? Like, nothing. Like, there is no connective tissue, okay? Unless we are, I guess, a nation that only cares about some of the most reactionary population that happens to preside over Doral. Like, that's it. That's who we're doing this for. You know what I mean? It's like a 9/11. It's like a million 9/11s for them. That's Maduro existing is like a million 9/11s for them. It's just dumb as fuck. It makes no damn sense.
There's fleeing interest in the story and way less interest than we had back during a military operation that did provide a boost to Obama, but not really one that was long lasting.
Interesting to see if that changes over the course of the week with football over, but this really does show that people stop paying attention pretty quickly on Saturday. Yeah. In terms of what happens next, obviously the United States says it's running Venezuela, but what do the prediction markets say? Who do they think will be running Venezuela?
Yeah, who do we think is going to be leading Venezuela? Look, it's a little bit of a cluster car.
Oh my fucking God. Oh my God. And it's like sponsored gambling. We're gambling on who America will let lead a sovereign fucking nation. I like that Maria Corina Machado is at 20%, by the way. Edmundo Gonzalez is like the fucking the person that's at least like the guy who you got Delcy Rodriguez, who's the vice president, who's now the interim president. Okay. She is through and through a Chavista, as far as I understand, even though the operation itself was a little bit suspicious and worthy of scrutiny on whether, like, what level of involvement existed within the Venezuelan administration, within the Venezuelan government. But I like that the very clear-cut CIA operative here that has been trying to fucking do this for decades now has had her moment in the spotlight, and boom, instantly she's cut out. And maybe even for a very pathetic and very selfish reason. But once again, sucks to suck. I mean, I think she's a disgusting little creature anyway. I don't give a fuck about her perspective. And I hope people understand that the Nobel Peace Prize has maybe the same level of authority as like the FIFA Peace Prize, if we're being real. Okay. So, yeah, we'll obviously talk about the Maria Corina Machado part of this equation as well. It was pretty funny. Insanity. Sources close to the White House told the Washington Post Trump lost interest in backing Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado to lead the country because she accepted her Nobel Peace Prize rather than demanded it be given to Trump, which was viewed as the ultimate sin. I don't know if this is 100% valid. I know it's like fun to say Trump is a fucking baboon. And this is one of those, like, Trump is not doing Venezuela coup. Trump is not doing a Venezuela coup the right way type argument that you hear from different sides of the State Department. I'm sure there's like disagreements. Remember, there's always different planks in the State Department. Okay? There's always different planks in the State Department. You're going to have like the reasonable coup guys. They're all pro coup, of course, but you're going to have some guys who are like, you're not doing the coup the right way that we were supposed to do it. And you're going to have other people in the State Department who are just like, whatever Trump says goes. So I think like there's probably a little bit of friction happening internally. And that's why you're seeing these sorts of reports coming from Washington Post, New York Times, and other places where all the reasonable State Department guys are actually very upset. This statement was, of course, repeated by my favorite 2028 presidential hopeful. Where is it? Oh, Chris Murphy. Here it is. Chris Murphy says, they got rid of Maduro, but let Maduro's corrupt thugs stay in charge. It's mostly because they just want their oil friends to get rich and Maduro's crowd might let them. But I guess it's also because the pro-democracy opposition leader was actually righteous, and that's bad. This is, of course, Chris Murphy, who once famously said in the first Trump administration, we tried to do a soft coup in Venezuela and Trump fucked it up. And I could not believe it. I thought that was an unbelievable admission. It's like, you're supposed to be a Democrat, brother. You're supposed to be the anti-war guy. Remember? The anti-war Democrats, do you guys remember that? Of course you don't, because all of you are like at most 30 fucking years old. And you have never actually experienced a Democratic Party that even entertained the notion of being anti-war, because shouts out to Barack Obama. So, yeah, maybe some of you that are older remember a time when the Democrats at least tried to present themselves as anti-war, and all of that went away with the global war on terror. But, yeah, Chris Murphy attacks Donald Trump from the right here. Didn't think it was possible to attack Trump from the right on this, but here we are. Very, very funny to imply Trump's oil friends wouldn't get rich with Machado. Machado herself has made this central to her political project. This is literally all she talks about. Machado was begging in a business conference in Florida to allow her to run the country and install her as a puppet leader so she can give all of the natural resources of Venezuela to those who want to rape and pillage it. To foreign capital. So it's very strange that he's making it seem like Machado was the pro-democracy choice here. Get the fuck out of here. Okay? But once again, this is the same Chris Murphy who in 2020 said, then it got real embarrassing in April 2019. We tried to organize a kind of coup, but it became a debacle. Everyone had told us they'd rally to Guaido, got cold feet, and the plan failed publicly and spectacularly, making America look foolish and weak. This once again goes back to the same thing that I always say. American foreign policy is bipartisan. American foreign policy is uniparty. Okay? That's it. That's it. It's uniparty with very little distinction between one party over the other. Okay? So, yeah. Juan Guaido Twitch says, I respect Chris Murphy. I can't believe the real legitimate leader of Venezuela is in my chat right now. I cannot believe it. We've long asked the question, where's Juan Guaido? And maybe many of you thought that this was a joke. Well, it turns out he's here. He's in my Twitch chat saying he respects Chris Murphy. Why aren't you considering the Venezuelans and Miami's feelings? M. Machado high? Machado. Yeah. I'm not considering anybody's opinions or feelings on this. It's always funny when people are like, why don't you listen to this? Why don't you listen to the fucking victims? It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm telling you what is happening, and I'm telling you what's going to happen. Do you think that like the Venezuelan perspective even matters a little bit? And it sucks because I said this exact same thing during Ukraine. And a lot of people were like, why don't you care about the average Ukrainian? Because I was like, because this is America, okay? America does not care about the perspectives of the average Ukrainian. Now, it's taken a couple years, but I think a lot of Ukrainians now realize that turns out maybe America doesn't give a fuck about the feelings of the average Ukrainian whenever they're making decisions. And it's not even like totally a Trump versus a Democrat thing either. Let's be real. America as a government doesn't even give a shit about Americans and their feelings. Why would they ever care about foreigners, dude? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, the American government won't even allow, despite being the wealthiest nation on the planet, won't even allow its own citizens to have free health care. And there are foreign nationals in my chat talking about, why don't you care about our feelings? Why won't you care about the feelings of foreign nationals? I'm talking about American action. I'm talking about American imperialism. You think your fucking feelings play a role in this equation? My feelings don't even play a role in this equation, and I'm a fucking American. I pay so much in fucking taxes, and the government still doesn't give a shit about what I have to say. Okay? Stop with this delusion. Stop with this fucking delusion. The best you can possibly do is gum up the works to the best of your ability and continue protesting and continue making it as difficult as possible. Okay? For the administration to do this without any scrutiny whatsoever. God damn. The irony is we are thinking about that because we discuss how much American meddling creates failed states. Yes. The funniest part is the Iranian idiots in LA asking, Persian idiots in LA asking for Trump to do it to Iran. Dumb fucks. I know. And that's coming too. As long as you continue to actively admit you don't give a fuck about us Venezuelans, then so be it. At least you admit it, harsh and heartless as it is. Brother, it's a little bit of that fucking hard to swallow pill I think that people need to hear in the same way that Trump does. You know what I mean? I do actually unironically care about the safety and security of Venezuelans, by the way. I do. That's why I'm arguing against intervention of this sort. I want Venezuelans to have a sovereign country. I want Venezuela and the Venezuelan economy to be rid of unjustifiable sanctions. I want Venezuela to be able to develop. I want Venezuela to be able to have democracy. Okay? But if you think that it's going to come at gunpoint with American empire, led by a person who openly fucking says that their ultimate desires here is not who actually controls Venezuela or what kind of repression that they do in at the behest of controlling Venezuela, okay? No, Americans will make this worse. That's obvious. Okay, glad that you understand, okay? My argument is that if you're going to come in here and tell me that I'm wrong about this, I'm just going to keep presenting a million different examples where this has taken place and it hasn't been good for the people that live there, okay? This is a problem us Venezuelans should have to figure out ourselves. Exactly. Well, that's my point. You see, that's what I believe. That's what I am advocating for, okay? But when you justify American intervention in any way, shape, or form in that situation, you're not advocating for that. And at which point I tell you, it doesn't matter what your perspective is. Do you see what I mean? And we can talk about like how we got here if you want. You know, we can talk about how we got here, which once again also plays a big role in what America was doing too. That's literally what he said he believes in. Did you just realize that? Fuck yeah, you tell him. Yeah, I know people, when I say harsh words, okay? when I say harsh words, people get very frustrated by it. They go, how dare you say those harsh words? But I think the faster people realize that American intervention is not going to be helpful for you, and any kind of justification around like, oh, well, Maduro is a despot or whatever the fuck, or, Maduro arrested or shot student protesters, or any number of different things that you're presenting here, is just being used as a justification for why America is doing this kind of action. So all you're left in that situation is just hurt feelings. But neither you nor myself have any say in this process. I'm just here to tell you that any kind of like, oh, well, Maduro was bad, and I'm glad that this like very bad president was able to do something that was ultimately good, it's not going to lead to a better future for Venezuelans at all, given the many different examples we can point to. Okay? It actually takes away from autonomy and sovereignty for Venezuelans when you have American intervention of this sort. Okay? American intervention of this sort that didn't start with Donald Trump, mind you. This intervention began far before Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just the one who went with it and said, we're going to do the maximum thing that that no one would do in other circumstances. We're going to do it because I'm fucking crazy enough to do it. That's why I also get annoyed at people saying like, this is just Marco Rubio's personal pet project. Like, no, it's not, man. This is America's fucking project since the Venezuelan oil company, the petroleum company, existed. Okay, this is not new, and it's not even 15 to 25 years. Okay, this has been going on for a very long time. Venezuela is one of the first countries in the Western Hemisphere that actually found oil. They found oil even before they fucking knew what to do with oil. Basically, they've been extracting it since the 1800s. Okay. Like, and the company, the nationalization initiative did not start under Chavez, which is also somewhat false. The nationalization initiative started far before Chavez in the 70s. The only difference with Chavez, just like with Mossadegh, is that they wanted to fucking take ownership over the contracts. They wanted to take ownership over how the extraction was taking place, who was actually making money off of it. Okay? It's been yeah, they're also literally, the American government is also literally saying they're furthering the Monroe Doctrine, It's not like, this is not a new concept at all. This is just Trump playing along with the same uniparty protocols that the American government has always had, working at the behest of capital, making sure that they control all fucking resource extraction in their own backyard, as they like to say, the Western Hemisphere. So yeah, that's where we're at. Yes, Chavez just finalized the expropriation by killing the contracts and kicking out American management. That's it. How is that not like Mossadegh? No, I said it's exactly like Mossadegh. It's the exact same thing that happened with Mossadegh. And we all know what happened to Mossadegh, right? In Iran. Ugh. It's ironic because American repression for years and years, for decades, okay? American intervention and American repression for decades takes root within this country, whether it be Venezuela or Iran, right? America has very sophisticated means of going in and finding wealthy people that have business interests in thwarting communism, thwarting socialism, or any kind of socialization initiative. So they tap into the, Chamber of Commerce, as they did in Venezuela. They tap into the big billionaires that own media companies, that own grocery chains and whatnot. And then they actively foment discontent. While on the other hand, they also apply heavy sanctions and carefully excise Venezuela or any other foreign adversary that we've declared a foreign adversary because they want sovereignty over their own natural resources to not participate in the global marketplace in the same ways that they normally would. Okay? And then year over year, the economy worsens. And while there is still active intervention and active interference from the CIA, from the American government, obviously, as the economy worsens, volatility increases, people get more mad. People say, I'm starving. What the fuck are you doing? Why are you not giving me food? Okay? So then there is real protests that build up on top of the discontent that was fomented by the Western world, okay? Oftentimes by the CIA. And the leaders of this discontent are oftentimes like nationals themselves, nationals with a different ideological investment or nationals with a different goal in mind. Oftentimes the goal is domination and control over the resources anyway. And then what takes place is tremendous amounts of protests and a government that is much less powerful than the most powerful government on the planet, the leader of the hegemonic superpower here, the United States of America, ends up engaging in incredible amounts of cruelty and repression because they have a state that they need to manage. This is not a justification for these actions. This is just analysis, okay? I'm not saying this is good. I'm just trying to explain to you how it works. That's how it's worked in America as well. During times of war, we invent new methods of cruelty, even if it's not a hot war, but a cold one. Red Scare propaganda, McCarthyist trials, and blacklisting people and even imprisoning them took place in both of the instances of the Red Scare trials historically in the United States of America. Why? Because we were fighting against communism, right? So America's done this as well. Other countries also do it with regular frequency. That's why I also constantly say you will see how much America cares about free speech when America's power in the global stage is waning and other superpowers get to try and influence the American government. You'll see. You'll see how much free speech we have. We've already shown that we don't give a fuck about free speech during the student protest movements that took place in this country under the Democratic leadership, and then also certainly under Donald Trump as well. So, as I was saying, state repression begins, or state repression greatly increases, and that state repression ends up fomenting even more real discontent, even more militancy, as a matter of fact. And the more militancy there is, the more discontent there is, the more state repression there is. So even if someone comes into power with great hopes and dreams, if someone came into power thinking like, oh yeah, I'm just going to continue the Chavista improvements, and we're going to learn from the lessons of the previous Chavez rulership, you ultimately drop all of that because you are trying to maintain stability and trying to maintain sovereignty, fighting against one of the most powerful forces on the planet. And that's how cruelty, that is how the state repression and state cruelty increases and grows. Okay? There's outside forces that you are constantly fighting against, and those outside forces have a really good way of creating forces inside of the country, both by way of sanctions and crippling the economy, which Trump openly stated he wanted to make the economy scream, and then also simultaneously, actively creating discontent amongst the population, some real, some pushed by the United States of America. And then we turn around and we use that discontent as a reason for why we must intervene in Venezuelan affairs. We use that discontent as an argument to why we must destroy the Venezuelan government. We must destroy the Venezuelan population. We must steal their natural resources. Now, of course, what's interesting is this administration is not even doing that. They're doing this instead. And yet there are still liberals I see all over the timeline going, listen to Venezuelan voices. Listen to Venezuelan voices. Listen to Venezuelan voices. They're so happy. They're so happy. They're celebrating this. And that is the reason why I say I don't care, and neither does the fucking American government. So you are just doing propaganda for this administration that keeps saying, we don't give a fuck about the Venezuelan voices at all. We're just here to steal the oil. We're just here to steal the oil, the natural resources, and dominate our own hemisphere. Okay? I don't know if you're telling that to yourself or you're telling that to others. or you're just saying it because you want to feel good about this action, even though all signs point to this being bad. But ultimately, it has no basis on this commentary. It has no basis in my analysis. As I've said time and time again, you know, I didn't listen to the Iraqi voices when they were celebrating the fall of Saddam and the American intervention. I didn't listen to the Libyan voices against Gaddafi, because at the end of the day, those voices don't matter. And the evidence of their voices not mattering is exactly what we've done to Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya. The only time there is a successful example of development is Vietnam, when after 20 years of protracted struggle, the Vietnamese population is actually able to liberate itself from the throes of American control and American dominance. And look at Vietnam now. Okay? You're saying this in the most autistic way possible. You're trying to say what they feel doesn't matter because their feelings and interests won't be considered by the American state. Not that you don't personally care about them as people. Yes, you're right. I'm saying, of course, I care about the safety and security of Venezuelans, which is precisely the reason why I'm arguing against this kind of action. But if you're going to come in here and use standpoint epistemology to justify American imperialism at a time when the American government itself is not even fucking entertaining that notion that like Venezuelans' safety and security is a primary focus here, you're being a bit of a dupe. Okay? Like I said, America doesn't even care about American citizens. Why the fuck would they care about Venezuelan citizens? Let's be fucking real.
It's been summarized for him and that he understands it. Maduro then waived the public reading of the charges, says he will read them himself.
Oh.
The judge did then read him his rights. He acknowledged his counsel, Mr. Pollack. Then the judge read essentially his Miranda. And then Maduro said he did not know of these rights, but that he is now informed. And then Maduro went on to plead not guilty.
Wow. He says, I am still president of my country.
Right. And he says that for a number of reasons. I would imagine, number one, because that's the way he sees his situation. Number two, Manuel Noriega, the Panamanian dictator who was taken into custody in the Bush administration.
This is not a good comparison because Panama was under military control by Noriega, who was already a CIA asset. Okay? You already had an American military base. It's very different than a full-blown sovereign fucking nation. Okay? And the president of a full-blown sovereign nation that has fought long and hard for its sovereignty.
And we heard from Bill Barr earlier today. He was the AG in charge of overseeing that at the Department of Justice at the time. But the head of state immunity issue is the one that he knows he can press, that he will try to use to defend himself, that I have immunity because I am the head of state. It did not work for Noriega in that trial back in Panama, and he was indicted on very similar drug charges, drug trafficking charges. The other thing that I would mention is, you know, just in terms of venue, as Emily pointed out, it could have been anywhere. I think some people would have argued that Florida was a good venue for this particular case. It is in New York. It falls under the U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton and the Southern District of New York in this case, and they have a lot of experience with this, but it is unlikely to go to trial for a very long time. And one of the issues, it will have a very long process, is what I'm hearing from former federal officials. And so he is likely to sit in jail for quite some time.
That's a fascinating detail, how long he sits in jail. And that cartel of the Sons, De La Solis, you've got those members, you've got Tren de Aragua, you've got others. Those people are going to try to continue to do business. And that's just fresh intelligence on the ground for who will be there, the United States. And so it gets more complicated day by day, I would imagine. But that is such an interesting point of how long he'll sit there. I was trying to find his age, because that matters too, right? The longer he sits there, maybe that changes things for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been in power for 17 years. And we can look up his age. I'm not exactly sure, but it is, you know, he's not recognized. 50 countries do not recognize him as the legitimate leader of this country, including the EU. So this is we just heard about this from Michael Waltz at the United Nations. So this is there's a lot of consensus on this. Did you just discover?
Yeah, I found it, and maybe because I'm getting older, but 63 doesn't seem that old to me.
Yeah, I would put him around there.
Yeah.
And he's a tall man with a big.
Well, apparently he was towering over his counsel.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Just want to point out too, his wife now has counsel as well. Texas Attorney Mark Donnelly filed motion to be admitted as counsel for Celia Adela Flores de Maduro. So I believe that there are something is happening with her right now, according to Paul's notes in the room. It appears we are getting a sense of a very defiant Maduro in this courtroom,
right,
insisting he has done nothing wrong repeatedly to the point where the judge.
Dude, it's awesome. We just make up fake charges. We just do a very open, broad daylight kidnapping operation. And we're like, well, in our domestic rules, we've decided, in our domestic laws, we've decided that you've done a crime. Sorry. And then everyone talks about it like there's any legitimacy here whatsoever. It's interesting. I think that attitude-wise, I'm noticing a shift here, at least in the way that like the American government is operating, where clearly the American government is saying like, nah, we don't really give a fuck about any of this stuff. Like, we just want the oil. We want to dominate Venezuela. Who gives a shit? And yet both Fox News and also New York Times and everybody else is like trying to make it seem like there is any sort of legitimacy to any of the actions that were taken. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you always wanted to move past liberal democratic values. No, I want the actual... you always wanted to move past liberal democratic values. Respecting the sovereignty of other countries is one of those liberal democracy values. What did you expect? No, brother. I want actual dignity and respect for other nations, okay? That's the difference. Liberal democratic values is a fake patina that they slap onto it to do fascism the right way, okay? By claiming process, by claiming that there's any sort of democratization initiative taking place. I first and foremost want people to have dignity, want people to live good lives. I want them to be rid of American imperialism, okay? My argument against the liberal international order is that they utilize process and paperwork and make it seem as though there is a standard here that they're applying, when in fact, there is no real standard when America decides to do whatever the fuck it wants. Do you understand? Good point by chatter above. This would only be legitimate in a UN court or ICC, not a domestic American trial. He's not an American citizen. He has not done a crime in America. If he's done an international crime, should be international court of The Hague. No, the argument that they're making, that's why they're using drug trafficking as a charge. They're saying that like if there's a criminal, if there's a criminal that is like, you know, actually trafficking drugs in the United States, like okay, I'll give you an example. Okay. I'll give you an example. The Honduran president, which Donald Trump recently pardoned. Okay. That is a former head of the state. Okay. And during during his tenure, he participated in cocaine trafficking into the United States of America. His name is Juan Orlando Hernandez. And he actually did that shit, right? And then there was an active court case. There was an investigation. They found him guilty, right? And he went to prison. And then Trump pardoned him. In that situation, there is like valid reason, valid suspicion, a real investigation that took place. And then last but not least, he wasn't even, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't even fucking captured as the president. Like that dude was literally doing the narco trafficking, right? So there is a validity to you know, arresting and apprehending foreign nationals if they are genuinely found to be guilty of harming American citizens. Like, I mean, that's the same principle behind like Osama bin Laden, right? Like Honduras extradited him, right? We did the proper protocols in that situation. Okay. This is not this is not anything. We just decided we can just make up a crime. Okay. We decided that we could just make up a crime, kidnap this dude, okay, bomb the fuck out of its capital, kidnap him, and then make it seem like there's any sort of real legal process taking place here. And what a lot of people don't realize is that this completely violates the sovereignty of every fucking country in Latin America. And that's the reason why they're doing it, right? If you don't fucking play ball with us, we come into your country, we say, hey, you have to have, Chevron dominate your country. You have to have Walmarts in every fucking corner. We will enslave your population to work in Amazon distribution facilities, right? Right? We don't want to use China anymore. We want to use Mexicans. And if you say, no, I don't want to do that, the fuck? I don't want to enslave my population. That's insane. We go, oh, well, you're a narco trafficking hub. Turns out, sorry. Now you have to be lasered. We'll abduct you in the middle of the night and we'll ship your ass to the Southern District of New York where we'll throw on like a fucking sham trial. And whoever we install in your place will play ball. That's it. That's what America is doing. And it's not like they're hiding that they're doing that. They're just straight up saying it. Which is why I find this extra strange. Like, unless you are a straight up die-in-the-wool hog, okay? Unless you are a straight up dumb fuck Republican. And if you are a dumb fuck Republican, I can explain to you how none of this stuff actually benefits you either. From a totally selfish perspective too. But unless you're like a dumb fuck Republican, how the hell do you look at the situation and go, well, at least the Venezuelans are celebrating or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? Like, do you not realize that this is exactly what happened? You're supposed to be a little bit smarter than this, right? Like, at least liberals are supposed to be a little bit smarter than hogs, but I think like American imperialism is so calcified in the collective consciousness of Americans that they just cannot even remotely think of anything but like America's kind of still doing the right thing, even when they're doing it the wrong way. No, they're not. They're not doing the right thing at all. They're doing the wrong thing, and they're doing it the wrong way.
Has had to stop him from talking.
Yeah, and he said, well, we could talk about the 4 counts and the fact that you want to, say that you're not guilty to all 4, but we're not doing it today. I want to bring in Carrie Urban.
Yes, explain how it's good or bad from a selfish standpoint. I already did earlier, but I'll repeat it once again. The Iraq War was not good for anyone. It was not good for the soldiers that were there. It was certainly not good for the Iraqi civilians that were slaughtered ruthlessly. It was not good for the power vacuum that created. In the aftermath of Saddam being taken out, we destroyed and destabilized this massive country. And it was good for a couple people, though. It was good for Dick Cheney. It was good for Halliburton that got fat contracts, which Dick Cheney was literally the president of Halliburton and or the CEO of Halliburton before he became the vice president. It was good for all of the oil companies, right? Because then they got to extract the previously nationalized Iraqi oil fields, right? And it was good for, I guess, like young upstarts in ISIS that were presented as like the connective tissue between Iraq and 9/11 somehow. So it was good for them. They got a lot of play. Thank you. They got a lot of play off of this. It was good for Blackwater, right? Which had a steady flow of new veterans that they could just hire that were looking to get back into the action. It was good for Israel that got to topple and destabilize a regional actor that, could potentially invite harm or keep Israel in check. But it wasn't good for the average American, right? And I think a lot of people understand that. That's partially why I compare this to like China. who at the same time, while America was engaging in this like endless military adventures all around the fucking world and doing American imperialism, China was focusing on development, right? And that's precisely the reason why they were able to improve the material conditions of the average Chinese citizen over the same time frame. Okay? That's it. That's it. Because none of this stuff is good for you. It's not good for you at all. You might think it's good for you. You're like, well, at least the price of oil is low. It's like, okay, well, keeps increasing, right? And it seems like everything else is not pegged to the dollar, the oil, or the price of an oil barrel anymore. Anyway, with all the corporate consolidation that has taken place, so it wasn't good for anybody. It wasn't good for the people who were celebrating the toppling of Saddam in Iraq, and it certainly wasn't good for the average American either. So that's it. This is precisely why the platitude of war is pointless, and supposed anti-war movies like Garland's Warfare is so soulless. They strip the war of the context and pretend it's enlightened. Whereas war is immensely beneficial for a small group of people, and ignoring the context hides that. Yes, war is always good, and wars are not meant to be won. Wars are just meant to continue in the backdrop. Okay? And that's precisely what has happened with American war. There are always people making money in a war. It's just you're not making any of that money. And also, before people say, okay, if we had like some kind of real military Keynesianism, or if we had like real robust social democracy, would that justify all the fucking endless extraction of natural resources from around the globe? Fuck no. I'm just saying that we don't even dignify the American labor aristocracy with the benefits of the imperial super profits. So if you are a selfish American who thinks you are going to benefit from this, at least for the time being, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not benefiting shit. But that's a second conversation that must take place later down the line, even if we get there, right? What is this? From a locked friend. I know I keep stating various variations of this take, but so far the only people Trump bombed who dug in and committed to a protracted fight on Allah won for all intents and purposes. He's obsessed with kicking in rotten doors, but the minute he meets real resistance, he bails. Oh, it's true. True. That's also true. You have to fight back. If might makes right, then the only way you can survive is by making it as costly as possible. Right? That's it. That's it.
Again, we have a team of people who are watching this for us, legal experts, and we also have Paul Morrow, who is a legal expert as well, former NYPD, and has been inside that courtroom many times. He's at the courthouse. So, Carrie Urban, I want to go to you now about the defiance that we are hearing reported inside the courtroom. And was that anticipated? Does that matter?
Interesting take, Hasan. It's not an interesting take at all. It's just objective reality. With respect to what took place between Iran and Israel, they didn't fucking stop because they came to their senses, or they didn't stop because they became woke. They stopped because Iran was depleting the fuck out of their defense systems. That's it. Interesting take, Hasan. Not what I heard last week. Yeah. Wait, what? This has been my perspective, and something that I have described over and over again for especially the last 2 years. This is not even like bias framing or anything. This is just an analysis over objective reality. I'm not giving you like a unique take here. It is difficult. It is difficult to achieve your goals if the other side is making it difficult for you.
Yes, well, the fact that he's wearing a black shirt on top of his orange jumpsuit. That's defiance in a t-shirt, right? It's symbolizing control. It's saying, look,
yes, you're using so many words to say he's got aura.
I'm doing what I want to do still, and I'm in charge. But look, his wife, and since we're talking about ages, she's 69, and she is about to be arraigned. She's no shrinking violet. She was the head of Venezuela's Congress, what's Congress for them. She was Attorney General, and there are some serious allegations against her in this indictment.
Hassan, so how did America become the richest nation then? The fuck you talking about? Neocolonialism, the fuck I know is not as fruitful as it used to, but it's still, stocks are doing great. Don't BS and say it wasn't good for America. BS, it kept industries involved there. Mad America better. Maybe not as good to negate the worsening material conditions due to capitalism, but in general, it's good. The fuck? Oh my God. Okay, third worldists, you're right. The war you must be waging is with the American proletariat, the labor aristocracy. Okay, yes. Let's not in the heart of empire. Me. Okay, I shouldn't be trying to educate other Americans to snap out of this fucking reality. You're right. I should be telling every single person. I should be actually maybe even fighting with fisticuffs my Amazon delivery driver, okay, when he shows up at my doorstep, because he also is participating in the labor aristocracy, in the extraction of imperial super profits. Thank you for your incredible adept analysis here. You actually fucking figured it out. You dialed in. You figured it out. This is the most appropriate way that I should be conducting myself, okay? It's another, like, Maoist third world is in an effort to find like moral consistency, unironically basically turn into fucking like anarchists and shit libs somehow. I don't know how, I don't know why. They just like lose sight of how to communicate with people. They lose sight of all of that. And they just become fucking weirdos. It's also wrong. Like, what the argument you're making is that like a regular dude that fucking works at Starbucks gets a 401k and therefore they're also participating in the imperial super profits because their fucking 401k is going to look better when the market's doing better? Is that unironically the argument that you're presenting here? Jesus Christ, dude. What an insane fucking statement. We make jokes about people who think they have an ownership stake in the stock market all the fucking time. Why would you think this is any different? Yes, Americans have been duped into believing that they also play a formative role. Like, they also get benefits from all of this shit. They don't. The only benefit they get is that they're not literally staring on the other side of the fucking barrel of the gun. That's it. That's the only benefit that the average American worker gets, okay? Is that you are at least not under the boot, okay? In some instances, you're wearing the boot as a servant of empire, but you're not under the boot, and that's it. Like, broadly, if we're talking about the American population, yes, your biggest benefit is that you don't live in the country that is being destroyed, dominated, used and abused, raped and pillaged. That's it. That's it. That's the biggest fucking benefit you get. And it's a tremendous benefit if you are under the boot, right? If you're sitting under the boot and you're looking at Americans living in the fucking heart of empire, you're like, oh my God, like these guys are living large. It's true. But I too am also living in the heart of empire. And my goal here is to try and educate people on what we do, what empire does, why it does the things that it does, and how it doesn't actually fucking end up benefiting people at all.
Including the fact that she attended a meeting where she accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes to broker a meeting between a large-scale drug trafficker and, wait for it, the director of Venezuela's National Anti-Drug Office. Yes, they actually have one, apparently. Her nephews were recorded, presumably to DEA sources, and they said that they were, quote, at war.
Come on, man. You can't say that the benefit is not the whole point or pose it as negligible. Brother, I'm not a fucking Filipino Maoist, okay? I'm an American citizen living in the United States of America. Shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ. I'm not talking to people that are already, I'm not talking to the fucking Iraqi family member who lost his family to American imperialism. I'm talking to a person who probably did the imperialism, who probably has a fucking cousin that went and did that shit, to make them realize what this looks like, okay? Shut the fuck up. Many of you are also like that. You're just LARPing. Many of you are not actually living under the crushing boot of American empire. You just read too many fucking books, and now you LARP as though you are living under the crushing boot of American empire, or you are at least a morally consistent, intellectually honest diasporoid yourself, okay? Jesus Christ. God damn, every fucking conversation, even when I'm in the process of making an anti-imperialist argument, motherfuckers have to argue with me on the aesthetics of the anti-imperialist argument. They're like, oh, you need to just like talk about how every American soldier is a terrorist that needs to be shot and killed. Why aren't you doing that? I don't know, because I'm not fucking insane, okay? Shut the fuck up.
With the United States. And that's very helpful language, I think, for the government's case as they bring that, for sure. And those were her nephews. But interestingly, they indicated in this meeting that they were seeking to raise $20 million in drug proceeds to support a campaign by Celia for her re-election campaign.
I think you underestimate your role outside the U.S. You try to redeem Americans. All right, good luck. I hope I'm wrong and you can do it. But you're also awakening many people throughout the world to the horrors that USA commit, and that matters too. No, this is the exact same fucking argument that we have whenever we talk about, like when I talk about transphobia, I'm not talking to trans people. They already experience transphobia, okay? They already know what that is. They live it every day. When I'm talking about, you know, anti-black, white supremacist racism, I'm not talking to black people. I'm talking to people who are in the margins, who might actually entertain that kind of ideal that I'm trying to pull off the fucking ledge here, okay? And when I'm talking about American imperialism, I'm talking to mostly Westerners, okay? Mostly Westerners. I'm not talking to the people who are victims of American imperialism. The fuck do you mean? You already know what that looks like, okay? Jesus Christ. Please, stop. Why do you keep getting pissed at valid points? Because you want to know why? Because this argument is utterly unproductive and incredibly stupid, and it's just me getting one guy, maybe not one guy, but like 30 guy in this situation, and it makes us look like fucking clowns because it is an infinitely easier argument to process if you just go, yeah, based, it's actually awesome. America's dicks are so fucking mighty. It's actually awesome. We're going to get free oil. I'm combating against much more powerful, nefarious forces here when I'm actually conducting myself a certain way. Okay, and many of you don't know this. Many of you might be morally correct in your position, but you're being fucking annoying, and it's impossible to actually penetrate people's collective consciousness when they've been duped into thinking that American empire is mighty and that's a good thing for them. When I got a bunch of fucking people chirping in my goddamn ear being a nuisance. Okay, shut up. Shut up. Stop chirping.
For National Assembly when she was running that. So it's quite a family operation that has been using the Venezuelan government as a front for this international drug operation for many years now.
So, you know, the most recent video that I remember where we saw anything coming from Maduro was in that moving car where he was saying, you know, come and get me, and, you know, he's not afraid of anything, that sort of thing. I'm paraphrasing. Some of it was salty. But I'm curious to know what's being seen in court today. Is that the individual who was anticipating being taken? They were trying to go into, you know, a locked room. They were trying to get away and hide in their protective room, and they couldn't outrun our U.S. military, he and his wife.
Yeah, that's right. And look, this is standard processes of justice that's happening right now. They're being arraigned. They're entering their pleas. They are, we're seeing who's representing them. And his wife, it seems like, is up next. The fact that
that's the other part of this equation. Like, I don't even know the fuck has Maduro's wife got to do with any of this. Like, they're like, yeah, his children and his wife were also trafficking cocaine. Everyone was trafficking cocaine, actually. They were doing the cocaine. They were boofing it. And they were doing it. And also they had guns. Yeah. They had machine guns that they were going to traffic cocaine with.
he wants to read. Apparently, the charges himself. I think you just said that out loud. I didn't see that in the notes, but that's quite interesting as well. He is, I think, like Martha was pointing out, he is very much wanting to portray to the world, I am the president of Venezuela, I am in charge, and I'm not going down without a fight. Now, of course, because of the Noriega precedent and this being a very, I think, open and shut law enforcement case with the added benefit of defense.
Yeah. Remember when they were trying to say Maduro was trafficking fentanyl and they completely dropped fentanyl and now they're saying it's actually cocaine? What happened? I thought the argument was that Maduro was trafficking metric tons of fentanyl into the United States of America. And now they're not even doing that. Fentanyl is not even mentioned once in the 25-page indictment. Not once. What happened? I thought fentanyl was the great WMD. I thought Maduro was the one trafficking fentanyl. He loves trafficking fentanyl. This is like WMD. He loves trafficking in the United States of America. They just dropped it. They're just like, it's cocaine, actually.
This is from a national security perspective. I don't really think he has much of a shot. But this is going to take some time, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
So it's interesting from our team, our producing team, and also Paul Morrow in the courthouse. The wife